right. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatay Hawa, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Ruach HaKodash. Welcome to another live lesson. All right. The name of this one is Imposed on Them Unto the Time of Reformation. And that's a quote from the book of Hebrews, the 9th chapter, which we're going to get into. Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai Ratazah. But before we get into the lesson, just want to make mention that Elder Apostle Tar's channel, what is the 666 mark? He's not able to upload anything or do anything on that as of now. So he's using his GMS DocuTube backup page. So brothers want to view the Apostle's videos, you can go here. I put the link in the description box, so brothers could just click on it when they get a chance, and then that way, if you're not subscribed, you can subscribe to the Elder Apostle Tar's other channel. All right, now, what are we dealing with here? We're dealing with something called, in the scriptures, called imposed on them unto the time of reformation. Now, what you're looking at in front of you is it's a video. I didn't watch the video. I just was looking for something that said the two covenants, just as a backdrop for the lesson. All right. And these wacky tacky Christians, they always want to go into the Bible. They want to talk about the Gentiles being saved. They want to quote different scriptures, and they want to take into their mouth also the covenants, the two covenants. They always talk about the two covenants, but they never address the fact that those two covenants was only made with the nation of Israel. They always want to try to get around that. And when you break the scriptures down properly and you understand the scriptures properly, this only applies to the nation of Israel. And the reason why some of these wacky tacky Christians are so upset is because some of them have spent a lot of money going to these seminary schools, and they speak with them big words, like the Apostle Paul said, when I made known to you the coming of our Lord, I didn't do it with wisdom of man's words. So since they did all that, they spent all this time and energy and money and learning the scriptures, and we didn't go to college or anything like that, they get upset because how can these guys from the ghettos, they call it ghetto scholarships and all that crap, how can they have the truth when they didn't go to school or they didn't go to college? I could tell by the way they speak. They're not very well spoken. Their vocabulary ain't as vast as ours, which is bullshit. They have those nice or those pseudo big words that they use, and that scares the people. When you start using them big words and them terminologies, it scares the people. But when you go into the scriptures are very clear and they're very plain. There's nothing, there's nothing, what's the word I could use? There's nothing difficult about the scriptures. But if the Lord Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai doesn't open up your mind to understand it, then you're not going to get it. Point blank, period. Proverbs 8:8. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness. There is nothing froward or perverse in them. They are all plain to him that understandeth, and right to them that find knowledge. And this knowledge is very simple. Another scripture that comes to mind is the book of 2 Corinthians, the 11th chapter, and the 3rd verse. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Yahushai. So this truth is a very simple thing. It's not complicated. People make it complicated. And that's why Esau does that, to have you go to college and all that, because it's a money-making racket, and those that have gotten into the money-making racket and they eventually set up their denomination or whatever it is that they teach, that's a way of funneling money in, to those that are unaware. So panurgia, craftiness, cunning, see, a specious or false wisdom. And we know that the scriptures say that wickedness is not wisdom. In a good sense, prudence, skill, and undertaking and carrying on affairs. But we're dealing with in a good sense, simplicity in a good sense, but it could be used in a bad sense. In this case, it's a good sense because it's a very simple and easy to understand. It's not something that's hard to understand. It's simple. Bottom line. All right. So now let's go from there. Let's go to this main scripture we're going to be dealing with is in the book of Hebrews, the 9th chapter. We're going to start at the first verse. And the Apostle Paul is speaking to who? He's speaking to the Hebrews, which are Israelites. All right. And when he was speaking to the Galatians, and when he was speaking to the Ephesians, when he was speaking to the Corinthians and all of the rest of the letters who the Apostle Paul wrote to, who he was speaking to Israelite foreigners. And if you don't understand the history of Israel and how they were dispersed, you really won't be able to understand the New Testament. And when the Apostle Paul speaks about the Gentiles and the deliverance that's going to be given to them. But there's other scriptures in the New Testament that speak about the other nations when they're going to be put into slavery, captivity, so on and so forth, and judgment be brought upon them. So you have to know how to differentiate between the two. And these so-called Christians, they try to be facetious. Like when the vocab in them came up, the guy that had the Bruce Lee on his T-shirt, every time we would read a scripture, that's dealing with the the Israelites, right? And when it was dealing with the other nations, he was being facetious. He was being a dickhead. And he knew what he was doing. But this is the point. So let's go here, because this what the Apostle Paul is speaking about here. He's speaking about how the covenants were set up for the nation of Israel, and the different things that they had to do in order to receive forgiveness for sins. And he said, we don't have to do that anymore, because Yahushua came, to do that once and for all. Let me just get a precept that came to mind. Just hold it on deck. All right. So let's go back to Hebrews 9:1. Then verily the first covenant had also ordinances of divine service and a worldly sanctuary. And that worldly sanctuary is where the sacrifices would take place. The first covenant being the law, statutes, and commandments given to the nation of Israel by the hand of a mediator, Moses. And the agreement was, if you break these laws, there were certain things that you had to do. The sacrifice of certain animals and the blood of these certain animals in order for you to be forgiven or to be atoned for these sins. That's why every year we have what was known as the Day of Atonement. It said, for there was a tabernacle made, which we showed you in I believe it was the previous lesson or the lesson right before that. The first one was the candlestick, which showed you a replica of the temple, that Herod built. Nevertheless, the actual sanctuary, which King Solomon built, where was a house that King David wanted to build for the Most High, was established, and that was just a thing that was set up temporarily. It says, for there was a tabernacle made. The first one was a candlestick and a table and a shewbread, which is called the sanctuary. And after the second veil, the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all, which had the golden censer, and that holy of holiest is where the high priest would go into. So these things here, the sanctuary and the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant, we no longer need that, because Yahushua is the Ark of the Covenant now. The Most High and Yahushua are the temple. See, what we're doing right now is we're pretty much just rehearsing the righteous acts until Yahushua comes back to redeem, his elect, and to set his people, which are the Israelites, back up into power, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. It says, and wherever the Israelites are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, no matter what they look like. And Elder Pastor did a video this past week on the third and fourth generation, and how from Blake Griffith's father, which was a dark-skinned Levite, to what Blake Griffith looked like, to what his son looks like. And that just happened in a matter of from, the grandfather, father, and the son. Just that quick. It didn't even take 50 years, like he said. So that shows you that you have Israelites all over the world that look like all different nations. It says, which had the golden censer and the ark of the covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had manna, and Aaron's bud that budded in the tables of the covenant. And over it the cherubims of glory, shadowing the mercy seat, of which we cannot now speak particularly. And this mercy seat is the ark of the covenant. And the mercy seat, you had the cherubims, and between the cherubims you had what was called the mercy seat, because that's where the Spirit of the Lord would present himself before the high priest to receive the atonements for the sin of Israel for that whole year. So now once Yahushua went and died on the cross, and it got dark, there was an earthquake, and the veil in the temple rent, that was significant for him making the way to the holiest of holy, which is to get to the Most High Yahweh by his flesh. So we no longer have to sacrifice animals, and we will we will never have to sacrifice animals ever again. But these Hebrews, they were still doing it at this time. So the Apostle Paul was breaking it down to them why they don't have to do that anymore. It says, now when these things were thus ordained, the priest went always into the first tabernacle, accomplishing the service of the Most High, because every day the priest had something that they had to do. But into the second went the high priest alone once a year. You see, it says not without blood, which he offered for himself and for the errors of the people. And that's the reason why the tabernacle was set up. I wanted to do another lesson. Lord's will I could do it after this, because it'll kind of tie into it. Because all of that, the covenants, the tabernacles, the ark of the covenant, all of this all ties in together, and it all is only given to the nation of Israel. And that's one thing these wacky-tacky Christians do not want to deal with. They'll talk about the covenants, but they won't talk about the part where it says it's only for the nation of Israel. It says the Holy Spirit, this signifying that the way into the holiest of all was not yet made manifest, while as the first tabernacle was yet standing. So while you had the first tabernacle standing, the priest officiating the business, of the Lord, according to the law, daily, the high priest going into the holiest of holies once a year, while that was being done, the way into the holiest of all had not been made manifest yet. So what this did was it gave us an idea, so to speak, of what would take place in the future when the Lord would take away, our offenses. Because remember, when the Most High told Moses to set up the sanctuary and all that, he said, make sure you do it according to the pattern of the things that were shown to you. Because the Lord showed Moses in the heavens how things are in the heavens. And that was replicated through Moses, and the men back then, to have something here to get us closer to the Most High. That's why Yahushua said, let thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. See, because ultimately that's what's going to come on the earth is total righteousness, which was supposed to be that way from the beginning. But the Most High had a plan. That's why the serpent came. That's why Eve was deceived. Yes, the woman was deceived first. That's why she gave to Adam. Adam went off. And from that point on, we fell, from that great stature. But we went through a learning process, which High Priest Yaquab used to always talk about, is that we had to learn the left-hand side in order to be able to do the right thing. Because if you never experience certain things, how can you give somebody advice on it? Like if you read the scriptures back and forth, about a woman, and you could tell your brother, watch out for that woman, this, that, the other, but you never had a woman. You never felt a woman. You know, you never, had sex with a woman. You know, you never been in a relationship. You never had children with a woman. Never went through the ups and downs of a relationship. How can you give somebody advice just based off of book knowledge? The best advice is someone that has the experience, and then they can tell you the whys, and the don'ts and the do's and all of that. Why? Because they've had the experience. So not only can they bring it out of the scriptures to give you the understanding of it, but they could also give you sound wisdom because they're speaking to you by experience. So this is why we went through the left-hand side. So this is a journey from the beginning of time until now. And now we're coming to the very end, wherein the Lord is about to set up the kingdom, which is going to be set up in righteousness. And all of these things that we went through, the sanctuary and the priests and the high priests and the offerings and the different blood of bulls and of goats and of different animals, clean animals for the forgiveness and atonement of our sins, was just a guideline to get us to where we needed to be. All right, to where we're at right now. It says, which was a figure for the time then present, right? Because this sanctuary was a figure for the time then present. Because remember, these things we went through were not able to make us perfect. But through Yahushua, we have been perfected as far as, being forgiven of our iniquities. But yet we still in the flesh and we still go off. So the covenant, the second covenant, has to be fully fulfilled and being put into our inward parts. Us being changed, the stony heart being taken out, the fleshy heart being put in, so that we can absorb and just do anything we do is righteousness. Won't be no more, one day you do good, the next day you do bad. No. You won't be able to do bad. We won't be able to do bad, period. It says, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect, as pertaining to the conscience, and not even the one that was performing, the sacrifices, because the priests had to atone for themselves before they could atone for the people. See, because we're not perfected, but we're on that road to perfection. So this is the point here, verse 10, which stood only in meats and drinks, and divers washings and cardinal ordinances. Why? Because those things that were done, get the blood of the bull, you drain the blood out, you do this, you do that, you overlay it, you put the flour, or however the Lord wanted that particular sacrifice for, either a peace offering, trespass offering, whatever the case was. But it says that these things were a temporary thing, imposed on them until the time of reformation. And this is the name of the lesson. Imposed on them, on who? The Israelites, until the time of reformation. Because when we read the 8th chapter, one chapter before that, it speaks about the covenants. But before we get into that, let's deal with the thing, this being a figure or a shadow. Let's go first and foremost to Hebrews 8:1. It says, now of the things which we have spoken, this is the sum. We have such an high priest who is set on the right hand of the throne of the majesty in the heavens, which is Yahushua, a minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle, which the Lord pitched and not man. So the earthly sanctuary that we saw back then was just a figure. It was a temporary thing to lead us to Yahushua, because ultimately Yahushua was going to be sacrificed for us, to set us back in the good graces of Yahweh. And then when you search the scriptures tell you that Yahushua was ordained to be that sacrificial lamb from the foundation of the world, and even before the world was even created. You see? It says, for every high priest is ordained to offer gifts and sacrifices, whereof it is of necessity that this man have somewhat also to offer. And what did he offer? He offered up his body, because the Most High was done with those sacrifices that Jake was running into the ground. For if he were on earth, he should not be a priest, seeing there are priests that offer gifts according to the law. Right. Because you had a priesthood after the order of Aaron. It says, who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things. See? So this was an example and a shadow of heavenly things. The sanctuary, the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant. All of that was just a shadow of things to come. Then it goes on to say, as Moses was admonished of the Most High when he was about to make the tabernacle, for see, saith he, that thou make all things, according to the pattern show to thee in the mount. So the Lord told him, make sure that you do this thing, but make sure that you pay very close attention to the detail, because the Most High is a perfectionist. He's all about detail. It's all about, doing it the way the Most High wants it done. The Most High, for lack of better words, is a stickler for detail. He's very particular in the way that he wants things done. But all of this stuff that we see was just temporary. It was just a shadow of things to come. So let's go to Colossians 2:16. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days. Why? Because we are rehearsing these righteous acts. We're doing it to the best of our ability. Technically, if you want to get technical, we really don't have to keep the Day of Atonement anymore. But we do it as a thing of faith, a thing of grace, a thing of respecting and honoring a day that the Most High Yahweh set up for us to be forgiven. And that's why we still keep it to this day. Even though we really technically don't have to, but we still keep it to this day. Why? To show our loyalty, our piety, our faith to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Because these things, that's why I said, let no man judge you in meat or drink or respect of a holy day, the new moon or the Sabbath days. Why? It says, which are a shadow of things to come. So these things that we see was a shadow of things to come. And the law, which was our schoolmaster, led us to Yahushai because we couldn't keep the law perfect. But the law is not done away with. What's done away with is we have grace now, to where if we committed something, the Lord can he covered the cost for us. But the law is not done away with because the law will be put into our inward parts in the kingdom. So how could the law be done away with, as these wacky-tacky Christians talk about, if the law, part of the second covenant is for the law to be put into our inward parts? How can the law be done away with if that's the case? So these things that we see that our forefathers did with the sacrificial lambs and all that, and everything that they went through in the priesthood for the forgiveness of the sins of the people, that was just a shadow of things to come. But the body is of Yahushai because Yahushai became that ultimate sacrifice. See, now let's go to Galatians 4 real quick. It says, matter of fact, let me bring this here. It says Galatians 4, and I'll start at 1. Now I say that the heir, as long as he is a child, differeth nothing from a servant, though he be Lord of all, but is under tutors and governors unto the time appointed of the Father. So the same way a child that is to become an heir is under the tutor, we all also were under tutors, which was what? The law was our schoolmaster. And you also had actual tutors that would teach the sons and daughters of nobility, mainly the sons. They would teach them how to conduct themselves, how to be. It says, even so we, when we were children, were in bondage under the elements of the world. But when the fullness of the time was come, the Most High sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, the same way that every man on the earth comes to the planet, except for Melchizedek. Every man that you see on the planet came here by way of a man and a woman getting together. You know? I mean, in Esau society, a man can get pregnant because Esau is a goddamn devil, a perverse goddamn demon. But the natural order of things is a man gets with a woman, has sex with the woman, shoots a sperm into the woman, and eventually a baby comes out of that union, which is carried by the mother. And it says it's made under the law, because when she had the Lord, she had to go through her purification process. Then she had to bring the child with his father, Joseph, to the temple for the baby to be circumcised. It says to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. So this has nothing to do with the other nations. And when we look up this word redeem,
Strong's G 1805. Exargarazzo,
to redeem. Now let's look up this word redeem real quick. Matter of fact, why did I have that there? I don't know, but this is good. It's right there. Redemption, mid 14th century, deliverance from sin. All right, from Old French and directly from Latin, a buying back. A buying back would be what? Like a ransom. So how can you buy back something that never belonged to you in the first place? And how was the nation of Israel bought back or redeemed? Through the blood of Yahushua. Matter of fact, let me see if my memory serves me well. Let's see. 1 Peter chapter 1. I'll start at 22. I mean, this, man, wow. Oh, no. 17. And if you call on the Father, who without respect of persons judgeth according to every man's work, pass the time of your sojourning here in fear. And that's a problem with a lot of guys. They don't have fear. For as much as you know that you were not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold, from your vain conversation received by tradition from your fathers. This was 2,000 years ago, so how much more now? Which our fathers really didn't teach us much of anything, because they didn't know anything. It says, but with the precious blood of Yahushua, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. So we were bought by the blood of Yahushua, because this was the price that the Most High wanted when you read Isaiah the 53rd chapter. And that's why it says, gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And that is the only people that did that was the nation of Israel. And the first and second covenant both pertain to the nation of Israel, who verily was foreordained before the foundation of the world, but was manifest in these last times for you, who by him do believe in the Most High, that raised him up from the dead and gave him glory, that your faith and hope might be in the Most High. So Yahushua is our hope. That is our anchor. Because the Most High looks through Yahushua to see us. And that's why we have that great grace, them tender mercies. So now let's go back to redeem by payment or of a price, to recover from the power of another. And right now we're under the power of Esau. Oh, what are you talking about? You guys ain't slaves. Man, shut your pie hole, man. First of all, if you have a birth certificate, if you have a social security card and all that, driver's license, you're a slave. All right? To ransom, buy off. See? To ransom. And the ransom to pay the ransom money was what? Yahushua's blood. Buy off. Metaphorically of Yahushua freeing the elect. From the dominion of the Mosaic law at the price of his vicarious death. Yes, but the law is still in effect. And the law will never be done away with, because the law will be put into our inward parts. But right now, Yahushua paid that price to buy up for oneself, for one's use, to make wise and sacred use of every opportunity for doing good, so that the zeal and well-doing are, as it were, to the purchase money by which we make the time our own. But the main point here is to buy back, to redeem. All right, so let's go back to that. Then we'll go back to Hebrews 9. To redeem them that were under the law. Who was under the law? Were all nations given the law? No, that's a very easy, And I remember I brought the scripture out years ago to someone, I forget who it was, and they said, no, that's not talking about that. So what is it talking about? They're going to tell you what it ain't talking about, but they ain't going to tell you what it's talking about. Psalms 147:19. He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. What does that mean? That's very plain. Meaning that this book that we have was only given to the nation of Israel, because that is who the Most High made the promise to Abraham through. Your seed, Abraham. So the statutes, judgments, laws, covenants was given to Jacob and Israel, because his name was changed to Israel. So to all of the people that came out of Jacob, that's who the promise was made to. He had not dealt so with any nation. Oh, that's not talking about he ain't dealing with the other nations. So what does it mean? He had not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgment, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. Why? Because the Lord is only dealing with the nation of Israel. You read the next chapter, it speaks about the saints, which are Israelites. What made them the saints or the holy people? The Most High separating us from the other nations by giving us his law, statutes, and commandments. That's what made us holy. So it says to redeem, back in Galatians 4:5, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. Why? Because the Most High put us away. He gave us away. So we became what? Orphans. So now through Yahushua, the Lord used that payment to buy us back, adopt us back to himself through his son. That's why we cry, Abba. It says, and because you are sons, the Most High have sent forth the spirit of his son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. Wherefore thou art no more a servant, but a son. And if a son, then an heir of the Most High through Yahushua. Why? Because that's what the Most High is looking for. When the kingdom is established, the Most High will be there. Yahushua will be there. He said, you shall be my people, and I will be your power. Why? Because we will be perfected. Our bodies will be changed. The law, statutes, and commandments will be into our inward parts, and we'll be pure in the sight of the Most High, and he can dwell among us. All right, now let's go back to Hebrews 9 and 10, which stood only in meats and drinks, dealing with the sacrifices in the tabernacle and the sanctuary, and divers washings and carnal ordinances imposed on them unto the time of reformation. Now, what does it mean by reformation? Let's go to the word reformation.
Strong's G 1357. Diarthosis. Diarthosis.
Diarthosis. In a physical sense, a making straight, restoring to its natural and normal condition something which in some way protrudes or has got out of line, as broken or misshapen limbs. So pretty much we went out of the way. We went out of the first condition that the Lord set us up as. Let's go, matter of fact, now this is a perfect time. We're going to go back to that. Perfect time to go to Hebrews 8 and 6. But now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. Now, was the covenant at fault? No. The first covenant was not at fault. Who was at fault? We were. It says, for finding fault with them. With who? With Israel, with us. He saith, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. This does not include any other nation, because the other nations are only meant to be slaves. The world was made for our sakes. It says, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continue not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. That's right. And we could read about that. When you read throughout Genesis and Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, you see all the times when Jake went off, just dealing with when the Lord gave us that covenant. And even Moses said, look, I know after my departure, you ain't going to follow, in these things. I know you're going to corrupt yourself. But he had to tell them anyway, so it could be a witness against them. And how did this witness manifest? By the curses of the law being put upon us, which is another sign that the Lord said would be upon us to let the world know that we are the Israelites. All right, it says, for this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days. So now he went from saying the make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah to just saying Israel now. Why? Because the nation is going to be brought back into one. And it's not the nation of Judah, it's the nation of Israel. But when the kingdom split, you had the kingdom of Judah, which was the southern kingdom, and you had the kingdom of Israel, which was the northern kingdom. Saith the Lord, I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their heart. So if this is the case, this hasn't happened yet. So why do these wacky-tacky Christians always say that the law is done away with? When a part of the second covenant is for the Lord to put those laws, into our inward parts once the kingdom is established. And I will be to them a God or a power, and they shall be to me a people. Why? Because then we'll be perfected. We could be in the sight of the Lord now. That's why it tells us in Revelation 21 that there will be no temple in the kingdom. Why? Because there will be no need for sacrifice. It said the Most High and Yahushua will be the temple. It says, and they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for all shall know me from the least to the greatest. Who? Israelites. So what we'll be doing is we'll be teaching the other nations. It says, for I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. So all these sins and iniquities that we have are going to be cast out. The Lord said he's going to wipe all that away. It tells you that, I believe, in Romans 11 chapter. There shall come the, matter of fact, let me get that real quick. Romans 11, I believe that's 26. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. And this is why he said this, because this chapter was dedicated to the bringing back of Israel that knew they were Israel, and the Israelite foreigners, which were being called Gentiles. And that's why towards the end of it, he said, and so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written. There shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Not from all nations, because all nations never received the laws. So going back to Hebrews 8 and 12, for I will be merciful unto their righteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. And that he saith, a new covenant, he hath made the first old. And that's why by the time, Yahushua came on the scene and sacrificed himself, they were still doing those sacrifices in the temple, but it was decaying and becoming old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away, because they were still, at this time, they were still doing it. Now today we don't do those sacrifices. Our bodies are the living sacrifice now. When we go out into to the highways and the hedges, and do these lessons, so on and so forth. All right, so going back to this, the word reformation in a physical sense, and making straight, restoring. Now, when you have an old car, right? Let's say you have a 1957 Chevy. Back in the days, that was like considered the creme de la creme. That was like the top, car back then. Then over the years, it got rust. You might have had a dent in it. You might have, if cars started falling apart, you got something new, so you kind of left it to the side and it started decaying. Then somebody came 40, 50, 60, 70 years later and saw the car and said, I would like to buy this car from you, and then they buy the car from, and what do? They restore it. Now, is it a brand new car? No, it's the same car, but it's just been restored back to the way that it was before, when it was in its heyday. So that's what the Lord is doing right now. He's restoring us back to the way that we were. And when you look up the word restore, it says the action of returning something to a former owner, place, or condition. And this applies in all three. Former owner is Yahweh. Former place is Jerusalem, Israel. Former condition is the holy people of the Lord. So the Lord is restoring us back to how we used to be. To the return of a hereditary monarch to a throne, a head of state to government, or a regime to power. Because you have what was called kings or nobility in exile. And that's pretty much what we are. We're being restored right now by the word, and eventually we will be physically restored back in the land by Yahweh, by Shem Yahweh Shai. And then let's read on here, because I got another word we want to look up. In a physical sense, and making straight, restoring to its natural and normal condition something which in some way protrudes or has got out of line. We got out of line. That's why, hold it now. Let's go real quick before we read on. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 20. It says, for of old time I have broken thy yoke and burst thy bands, and thou saidest, I will not transgress, when upon every high hill and under every green tree thou wanderest playing the harlot. Yet I have planted thee a noble vine, wholly a right seed. So the whole nation, by what? By the law, statutes, and commandments of the Lord. That's why it said that thou art an holy people unto the Lord. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? So we became degenerate. So Yahweh Shai had to come on the scene, shed his blood to restore us back to our former way. That's what it says in Haggai. It said the latter end is going to be greater than the beginning. This latter house is going to be greater than it was when it was first established. Why? Because it's set upon better promises, a better covenant. We'll be cleaned up. Our bodies will be changed into an immortal body, and the law, statutes, and commandments will be put into our inward parts. So we can be restored back to the way we were, and even greater. Because this is the promise that's made to the people of the Lord, the nation of Israel. So going back, it says, as broken or misshapen limbs. So we're being restored back. Of acts and institutions, reformation. Now let's look up the word reformation. Reformation is improvement, alteration for the better. So we're being improved. We're being altered. Why are we being altered? Because when the kingdom is established, our bodies will be changed. Ain't that an alteration? The stony heart will be taken out, fleshy heart put in. Isn't that an alteration? The law, statutes, and commandments being put into our inward parts, that's an alteration. It's just like if you have a computer and you have the tower and certain things go on the motherboard. What do you have to do? You have to restore it. You have to take it out, get rid of the bad stuff, and put in good stuff in it, so that it's still the same computer. It's just been altered from its first condition, because the first condition, it got old. So that's what's happening now. We're being reformed. It says improvement. Let's see. Action of past participle stem of the reformare. See, reform. And when we look up the word reform, it says what? To convert into another and better form. Rebuild, reconstruct, recreate. So it's the same thing, but we're just being rebuilt, reconstructed, recreated. And then it says from Latin reformare, to form again, change, transform, alter. So we're being formed again. We were once a great people. We were once a holy people. Now we're being reformed. We're being restored back to the way we were. And that's only given to the nation of Israel. So back in Hebrews chapter 9. Let's read that again. That's a hell of a verse. Which stood only in meats and in drinks and divers washings and carnal ordinances imposed on them, who? The Israelites, unto the time of Reformation. Because the Israelites were the only ones that received the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. But Yahushai, being come and high priest of good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building, neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood, he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. So, like in layman's terms, to understand that, it's just like once Yahushua gave up the spirit, almost like his body was left as a sacrifice on the cross. His spirit came out of his body, went through the temple, rent the temple, and went up to the Most High. Just to put it in layman's terms, not saying that it happened that way, just so we can get some understanding. Why? Because he went through that temple, through that veil, ripped the veil, because now his body is the veil. His body is the sanctuary. You see, that's why I said he shall be a sanctuary. Matter of fact, let me get that real quick. Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 14. It says, and he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling and for a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And many among them shall stumble and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. And I will wait upon the Lord that hideth his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Why? Because when the Most High hid his face from us, meaning he wasn't dealing with us. When he sent Yahushai, then we started to gain favor. When Yahushai made the ultimate sacrifice, we gained the favor now. Behold, I and the children whom the Lord hath given me are for signs and for wonders in Israel from the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth in Mount Zion. And that has never changed, man. That has never changed. So let's go back to Hebrews 9. So he got eternal redemption for us, Yahushai. For if the blood of bulls and of goats and the ashes of an heifer, sprinkling the unclean, sanctifieth to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Yahushai, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to the Most High, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living power. You know, because right now we're just rehearsing the righteous acts, doing the best we can. And for this cause, he is the mediator of the New Testament. For who? For the nation of Israel. It's not talking about the New Testament, the book of Mark, Luke, Matthew, even though that's a part of it, but it's talking about the leading of us to get to the Most High, to get to the kingdom through Yahushai's blood, so that the laws can be put into our inward parts, so that the second covenant can be fully fulfilled. And that'll happen in the kingdom. And this is the cause. So he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, which was given to who? The nation of Israel. They which are called, because you only have an election right now, might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. And that's why Yahushai shed his blood, and that put into effect the second covenant. Just like once the blood of those animals was shed, you know, and Moses sprinkled the altar and the book and the people, that sealed the covenant. So Yahushua sealed the second covenant by the shedding of his blood. Because it tells us that in the book of Zechariah. I don't know if that's the 9th chapter or the 12th chapter. Let's see. Right, Zechariah 9:11. And as for thee also, by the blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit wherein is no water. So Yahushua did that for us. For a testament is of force after men are dead, otherwise it is of no strength at all while the testator liveth. Whereupon neither the first, and that's why Yahushua prayed that he wanted the cup to pass from him. But if the cup would have passed, what would have happened? The deal would have not been sealed. The testament would have not been sealed. whereupon neither the first testament was dedicated without blood. That's right. For when Moses had spoken every precept to all the people according to the law, see, so he spoke it to them, and everything that you see now is a witness of it. According to the law, he took the blood of calves and of goats and with water and scarlet and wool and hyssop and sprinkled both the book and all the people, saying, this is the blood of the testament or the covenant, which the Most High hath enjoined unto you, because this is what joined us to the Most High. Sign the contract, big boy. Sign the contract. Inside joke. But that's the truth. That's how the contract was signed. Moreover, he sprinkled with blood both the tabernacle and all the vessels of the ministry, and almost all things are by the law purged with blood, and without shedding of blood is no remission. And that's why Yahushua had to come down. It was therefore necessary that the patterns of things in the heavens should be purified with these, but the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these. For Yahushua has not entered into the holy place made with hands, which are the figures of the true. See? So this was a rehearsal, but into heaven itself, because that's what that represented. You know, the sanctuary, when the Lord came down, it's like us receiving grace in the sight of the Lord. Now Yahushua is there. You don't have to have the high priest or the priest to do the different offices of Israel and the sacrifices, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of the Most High for us. Nor yet that he should offer himself often, as the high priest entereth into the holy place every year with the blood of others, for then must he often have suffered since the foundation of the world. And he's not going to keep coming back down here. But now once in the end of the world, hath he appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment, because when you die, you go before the throne of the Lord, and he gives you your sentence of what you're going to do next time you come on the earth. Men don't die twice. If you die and you revive, you didn't really die. You just had a out-of-body experience for a while. Because when it's your time, it's your time. So once you die, you go up before the throne. You don't live again until the Lord sends that spirit back down in another body. So Yahushua was once offered to bear the sins of many of Israel. And unto them that look for him shall he appear the second time without sin unto salvation, which is the Israelites, which is dealing with the elect right now. You know? So that's pretty much been the imposed on them unto the time of reformation, dealing with the word reformation. Lord's will, I got another lesson that I had wanted to do based off of that, you know, with the tabernacle. So if the Spirit allows, I could do that also, you know, and we'll see, you know, and this, you know, through the Spirit and the power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, this lesson was inspired. And Elder Apostle Tar has been mentioning and talking about the book of Hebrews, which is my favorite book in the scriptures. So when they mentioned that, you know, I started getting back into the book of Hebrews. And, you know, there's a lot in this book. I mean, it breaks it down just plain. You know, so with that, you know, I pray that you brothers have been edified. And to the next time I say, Shalom. Right, Zechariah 9:11. And as for thee also, by the blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit wherein is no water. So Yahushua did that for us. For a testament is of force after men are dead, otherwise it is of no strength at all while the testator liveth. Whereupon neither the first